Should you buy a new guitar or an old guitar? Well, in this case, I'm comparing a 200 euro guitar to a 200 euro guitar. This is a new Squier Affinity, one from last year, hardly been played. And this one is slightly older, it's from 1991. Also a Squier Strat. They cost the same. They're both Strats, made by Squier. Which one should you get? Hello and welcome to another video with me, Elmo J. Cottiline. It's good to have you along. You can call me this guy if my name is tricky to pronounce. Today I'm comparing two guitars that cost the same amount. I got this one, the 1991 Squier Strat from eBay for 200 euros, which is roughly $220. And this one costs 200 new, which is $220-ish. This is a Squier Affinity from last year, and it's hardly been played, and yes, this is from 1991. So what I'm going to be doing today, I'm going to be playing both a bit and talking about the pros and cons of each and trying to determine which would be a better alternative. Of course, you cannot get this particular one because I have it. Actually, you might be able to get it because probably will sell it at some point. But it's a general discussion of is it better to go second-hand when it comes to guitars and use the same amount of money for a second-hand guitar or get a new one. So, I've already reviewed this guitar and there's a link floating around here somewhere to that review. I've not reviewed this, I won't do a separate review of a second-hand guitar. But straight out of the gate, just looking at them, there are a couple of differences. This one, the wood in the neck looks really pale, and don't know what to say about that, but it does look really pale. Whereas the wood in the neck on this one is way darker. Putting the Affinity away, the Squier from 91, it looks a bit worn in some places. The frets could do with replacing, although it's not too bad. It's missing the pickup selector plastic cap thingy, and it was missing the whammy bar when I bought it, but I happen to have something that fit. Also, one of the tuners has been replaced, but better that way that we have a working tuner. It has a hairline fracture here, right in the neck joint. I'll try to take pictures of all of this. And a slight hairline fracture here. But that's about it. The neck looks in nice condition and yeah, looks to be in fairly good nick. There's a slight ding here, but that won't affect anything. This one is of course brand new, but there are a couple of issues with this that I've had. One is that the fret ends are sticking out. Now, you can file those down. Personally, I don't like doing that kind of stuff, but if you're the kind of person who enjoys working on the guitar, that's fine. That's because of humidity, and so the wood is dried and that makes the fret ends stick out. Which frankly sucks, because that means that they haven't actually properly dried out the wood. I have never had a problem with any of my guitars, the ones that I've actually bought to use myself, where the fret ends would have started sticking out, because the wood has been properly dried in each and every case. And that's the one thing with old guitars. The wood will have dried out and you won't get any nasty surprises down the line. The first time I tried this, it was fine. Gave it a month or so and it wasn't all that fine anymore. The necks also had a bit of a life of its own. That can also happen, so it's not entirely... It's a bit bent like this, which means that at least last time there was a bit of rattle going on. Yes, there is. That's easy enough to adjust with the Allen key that comes with the guitar. Except that I don't know where I have the Allen key for this guitar. I don't know where any of my... well, we moved studios, so a lot of stuff is yet to be found. But just to keep in mind, that's easy enough to adjust yourself. Although, if you're a beginner getting your first guitar, maybe that's not something you want to be doing. I say maybe, some of you might. So, let's get down to the actual sound comparison. I'll get these hooked up and start playing. I've mic'd up the wrong cab. Okay, let's try that again. What I'll be doing is I'll just basically running them kind of clean. The plexi isn't entirely clean, but I'll run them clean-ish. Then I'll run them kind of semi-overdriven and then max out the gain. Okay, so first the Squier Affinity. Yeah, let's tune it as well. This is going really well. Okay, let's add a bit of overdrive. I have the Fender Yngwie Malmsteen overdrive in front of me. Okay, and let's add a bit more gain and use the noise gate as well. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. How does it feel? It doesn't feel very nice. The fret ends don't feel nice at all. If you're going to buy an instrument where you have to file down the fret ends, you're going to have to get some kind of tools to do that. There are specialist tools for that as well, which means that this guitar actually, this particular guitar, would cost a bit more than the 200 because you have to get the specialist tools for the fret ends. I guess you could use any old file stuff lying around. At your own risk, you might damage the fretboard and the neck. Personally, I'd use the proper tools, and they'll cost a bit. Actually, personally, I wouldn't do it at all. I'd just get a guitar that doesn't have stuff sticking out hurting you. Okay, I'll change guitars. Right, same thing, cleanish and a bit of overdrive and a lot of overdrive. Okay, a bit of overdrive. That's not too nice. Okay, let's add a bit more overdrive. Okay, so this had a few issues as well. The volume pot seems to be on the brink of extinction, or it's soon to be an X-volume pot. You might be able to clean it, I don't know. The same with the pickup selector, it seems on the edge. I don't know if the previous owner has had any work done on this guitar at all. Considering it's a fairly affordable guitar, I would assume that some of this stuff has been changed at some point, because the cheap stuff does tend to break easier. Then again, it might be that it's held up well until now. So, if you're buying a second-hand guitar, there are issues that you might encounter. The electronics might be, especially in this price range, might be iffy. You might need to do a refretting job. You might be missing something. On the other hand, if you buy a new one, you might get issues with that as well, fret end sticking out and so on. But here's the thing, even though they both have their issues, the old one actually feels like a guitar, so you can upgrade it. That means that you can get better pickups, better electronics, you can do the frets again. Whereas, even though if you file down the frets of this guitar, it won't feel like a proper guitar. There's just something really cheap about it. And I don't mean affordable, I mean cheap. That might just be this particular guitar. And that's the thing when buying affordable instruments. The quality can vary hugely. I remember actually unboxing Squier Affinity back when I used to work in the music store here in the town I live in, and that was, I unboxed one and it was one of the best guitars in the shop at the time, whereas this, not so good. Might have done something to the Affinity range at some point, I don't know, but this thing feels like a proper guitar, whereas this, yeah, don't know, doesn't feel anything like it should. So it's a bit of a risk going either way. Personally, I'd go for the second-hand stuff and maybe add a bit more money. 200 is not a lot for a guitar, even second-hand, and if you add 100, especially second-hand, you should be in much better territory. If you add a couple of hundred, you're definitely in much better territory. You can save on the amp a bit. You can, if you're buying your first guitar and amp, I'd rather save on the amp, because guitar, if you get a good guitar, you can always upgrade that later on. If you get a piece of rubbish, there's no point in upgrading it. Resale value goes down and all that. Whereas an amp, you can get a second-hand Boss Katana very cheaply, Boss Katana Mini, Roland Microcube, those go real cheap. Yeah, so you can get a good practice amp for not a lot of money, whereas it pays to invest a bit in the guitar, because the last thing you want is that you start playing and lose interest because the instrument that you're playing is rubbish. So in this case I would go for this, even though it also has its issues. It feels proper. The Affinity, sad to say, doesn't. If you want to watch more of my gear reviews, there is a playlist floating around here somewhere. Support me on Patreon. I buy the gear that I review so you get an honest review. There's a link in the description and somewhere here as well. Other than that, I hope you liked the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, subscribe if you haven't already, hit that bell notification thing, comment, let me know if you have any experience of this type of thing, and yeah, I basically hope you have a good day, and I hope to see you in another one. Take care, bye!